Here's a question for you. Picture this. You're sitting in a leadership meeting. 8 people are around the table. They come from different generations, different backgrounds, different professions, and different life experiences. On paper, it's a diverse team. But during the meeting, 3 people do almost all the talking. 2 others contribute occasionally, and 3 say almost nothing. At the end of the meeting, the leader looks around and says, "Great discussion, folks." But was it really a great discussion? The team was diverse. The conversation wasn't. And that distinction is where our coaching talk begins today. Because having different people in the room is not the same as benefiting from the differences they bring into the room. Welcome to Coaching Talks, folks. I'm Richard Fontenay, and here we explore performance leadership, the everyday practices that help leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, and professionals bring out the best in themselves and in the people around them. This week, across our eLearning platform, we're exploring workplace diversity. Our leadership companion asks us to consider the return on investment of inclusion and why workplace diversity is a leadership advantage. And in the listening heart, we explored the spiritual foundation through justice, mercy, and humility. Now we're changing lenses. We're moving from what would we value to what should leaders actually do. And our central question is, how do we turn workplace diversity into fairness, belonging, contribution, and performance? And that's where performance leadership enters the conversation. Let's clarify 4 words that are often placed together: diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They are connected, but they don't mean exactly the same thing. Diversity concerns differences represented within the workplace. Now, these differences may include culture, age, ability, professional experience, education, generation, language, background, ways of thinking, and many other dimensions. And diversity asks, who is here? And equity brings us to fairness. Do people have a fair opportunity to contribute, develop, and succeed? Are unnecessary barriers getting in the way? So equity asks, does everyone have a fair opportunity? And then comes inclusion. Inclusion asks whether those different people can actually participate. Are they invited into the conversation? Are their ideas considered? Can they question assumptions? And can they disagree respectfully? Inclusion asks, who is being heard? And finally, belonging. Belonging is more personal. Do I feel that I can contribute here without constantly wondering whether I really fit? Belonging asks, do I matter here? Now, put those 4 questions together. Who is here? Is the opportunity fair? Who is being heard? And do people know they matter? Now we have a practical leadership conversation. Does diversity automatically improve performance? Now, this question is important, but does it alone create a workplace culture? We sometimes hear diversity discussed as though bringing different people together automatically creates better results. And unfortunately, it doesn't. Different perspectives can improve decisions. They can reveal blind spots. They can generate alternatives. They can help organizations understand different customs and different customers and communities. And they can challenge groupthink. But difference can also create tension. People communicate differently. They interpret situations differently. They may disagree about priorities. They may solve problems differently. And they may even have different expectations about what good leadership looks like. And that's why diversity needs leadership. Without effective leadership, difference can become misunderstanding. With effective leadership, difference can become insight. The question is not simply how diverse is our team. The more useful question is, how effectively are we using the perspectives already present on our team? And that's a performance management or performance leadership question. One of the biggest barriers is surprisingly ordinary. It's called comfort. We naturally gravitate toward people who communicate like us, people who understood our references, people whose behavior feels familiar, and people who make meetings easy. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with enjoying that comfort. The problem comes when comfort quietly becomes our leadership standard. Imagine you're choosing someone for an important project. You have two capable employees. One has worked closely with you before, and you understand each other. The other is equally capable, but approaches problems differently. Who gets the opportunity? Often, the familiar person, not because the leader intends to exclude anyone, but because familiarity feels safer. Do that once, and it may mean nothing. Do it repeatedly, though, and one employee accumulates experience, visibility, confidence, and opportunity, and the other doesn't. And that's how small leadership decisions can create large differences over time. Performance leadership asks us to notice the pattern, not with guilt, but with awareness, because we can't improve a pattern we refuse to see. Now, does fairness always mean identical treatment? Now, this is another challenge. Leaders often say, I treat everyone exactly the same way. It sounds fair, but effective leadership has rarely meant treating every person the same way. In cases like this, consider coaching. Consider a new employee that may need a different direction. An experienced employee may need autonomy. Someone learning a new skill may need frequent feedback. And someone who has mastered may need a stretch assignment. Some standards, same standards, but different support. And that's not favoritism, that's leadership. Equity works in a similar way. And fairness asks, what does this person reasonably need to have a fair opportunity to meet the standard? Now, the standard doesn't disappear, accountability doesn't disappear, and performance doesn't disappear as well. What changes is our understanding of how people reach the standard. Think about it, a staircase. For someone who uses the stairs easily, there's no barrier. For someone who cannot, though, saying everyone has access to the same stairs really doesn't solve the problem. The opportunity may look equal, but the individual experiences isn't. Good leaders learn to see the difference. Now let's turn to our previous meeting. There were 8 people sitting around the conference room, 3 doing most of the talking. And here, I'm giving you a simple performance leadership test. After your next important meeting, ask yourself who spoke, then who didn't, and finally, whose ideas influenced the decision. You may discover something interesting. Some employees contribute easily in fast-moving group discussions. Others process information before speaking. And some challenge authority comfortably, while others may have learned through culture, upbringing, or previous work experiences to be cautious around authority. Some employees communicate brilliantly verbally, while others express their thinking more effectively in writing. Now, if your communication and if your organization rewards only one communication style, you may be missing some important thinking. Our responsibility isn't to force everyone to become the loudest person in the room. It's to create more than one pathway for others to contribute. And that could mean circulating questions before the meeting. It could mean asking people individually for their perspective. And it could also mean allowing written follow-up or deliberately inviting someone into the discussion. Now, this is a simple practice, but potentially it leads to better decisions. Let's talk about belonging. Belonging can sound soft, but it isn't. Think about the amount of energy that goes in when someone is constantly wondering, should I say this? Will I sound foolish? Will this question hurt my career? Do they actually want my opinion? And should I just agree? When employees spend energy protecting themselves, that energy isn't going into the contribution. We need to look a little further. A sense of belonging doesn't mean employees should always feel comfortable. Good teams challenge one another. People receive difficult feedback. Ideas get rejected. And performance expectations remain. Belonging means something different. It means something personal, like I can participate in this environment without believing that disagreement or difference automatically threatens my standing within the group. Now, that's important because we want people to challenge ideas without attacking people, accountability without humiliation, differences without division, and belonging without lowering standards. And that's the balance leaders need to create. Now, let's take the conversation into our 3 e-learning pillars of business, work, and life. In business, diversity can reveal the customer you don't understand. Businesses often design products, services, and customer experiences around what their internal teams assume people need. A more diverse range of perspectives can challenge those assumptions. For instance, someone may notice that instructions are difficult to understand. Someone may recognize that an advertisement will be interpreted differently by another audience. Someone may identify an accessibility barrier, and someone may understand a customer group that has been overlooked. But those insights only matter if the leaders of the organization listens. And diversity creates potential, and inclusion converts potential into contribution. At work, we need to watch who gets the stretch assignment. There is a saying which I often use that goes something like this: opportunity often develops through small decisions. So ask yourself, who gets the challenging project? Who represents to senior management? Who attends the conference? Who gets introduced to an important client? Who receives informal mentoring? And who gets forgiven for an early mistake? Remember, the decisions you make build careers, and performance leaders periodically examine these questions, not to create mathematical oneness and sameness, but to make sure familiarity and habit aren't quietly determining opportunity. So ask, am I developing talent or simply developing the people I already know best? And that's worth reflecting on. And in life, notice your own circle. Our leadership habits don't begin when we walk into the office. They come with us. Think about the people whose opinions you regularly hear, like your friends, your professional network, the voices you follow online, the people you call when you need advice. Now, here's a question worth considering. How different are their experiences from yours? Now, we don't need artificial diversity in every friendship, but if everyone around us sees the world exactly as we do, we should at least recognize the limitation. And sometimes personal growth begins by listening beyond our usual circle. Now, here's the framework we'll take into part 2, the application. I call it invite, listen, enable, account, and they relate to leadership practices. When we invite, we celebrate opportunities for different people and perspectives to enter the conversation. Now, when we listen, we go beyond just participation and pay attention to what people actually say. And when we enable, we remove unnecessary barriers and give people the support they reasonably need to contribute effectively. And when we hold people to account, we maintain clear expectations and accountability for everyone. Now, that fourth element matters. Inclusion without accountability isn't effective leadership. Accountability without inclusion can become rigid, a rigid leadership. And performance leadership holds them together. Now, before we finish part 1, think about your own team or organization and ask yourself, who is here? Then, who is being heard? And then one more, who has potential that we may not be fully using? Don't rush the answer. Think about the quiet employee, the new employee, and experienced worker whose approach seems old-fashioned, the younger employee whose ideas sometimes feel unrealistic, the remote worker who joins meetings through a screen, and the person who doesn't naturally belong to your inner circle. There may be untapped contribution sitting closer to you than you think. Now, here's your first assignment for today. Don't launch an initiative. Don't announce a new program. For now, simply observe. During your next meeting or team interaction, notice who speaks first, who speaks most, who gets interrupted, whose ideas receive questions, whose ideas are quickly dismissed, who receives encouragement, and who remains silent. And perhaps most importantly, what do I do as a leader that influences these patterns? Observation creates information, and information allows better leadership decisions. And better decisions create the possibility of better performance. Now, we've covered a lot of ground in this podcast, so let's take a coffee break. Pour yourself another cup, or perhaps just stretch your legs for a moment. And during the break, I'd like you to think about one question. Is there someone around me whose potential I may not be fully seeing? Not because you've deliberately ignored them, and perhaps they simply don't communicate the way you do. Perhaps they haven't had the same opportunities that others have. And perhaps they're quiet, or perhaps they're new, or perhaps you've become so familiar with someone's role that you've stopped seeing what else might contribute. Think of one person, then ask yourself, what would happen if I deliberately create an opportunity to hear more from them? Now that's your coffee break reflection, because inclusion doesn't always begin with a major organizational strategy. And sometimes it begins with a leader that says, I'd like to hear what you think. In part 2, in the application, we're going to take our 4-part framework, invite, listen, enable, account, and turn it into practical leadership behaviors. We'll look at meetings, opportunities, feedback, accountability, belonging, and we'll build a simple inclusion performance check that you can use with your team. Because the objective isn't diversity for appearance sake. The objective is to create a workplace where different people have a fair opportunity to contribute their abilities toward a shared purpose. And that's where inclusion meets performance. So enjoy your break, and when you return, we'll move from understanding inclusion to leading it.